You're listening to the Here for the Clout podcast. Here are your hosts, Sherilyn Dale and Cece Suarez. Yeah, baby.
Hello, Clout Kings, Queens, and in-betweens. You are listening to Here for the Clout with me, Sherilyn Dale, and my co-host, Cece Suarez. As you guys obviously know, if you're looking at the video version, we are missing at this point. Last week, we had a super long episode for you, and there was actually a lot more to the episode. Chelsea had also come with a story, and as we were editing, we were like, this is going to be like 4 hours. So what we've decided to do is still include Chelsea's part because it's great. It's interesting too because my episode last week was kind of like the scammier side of things, which is Chelsea's forte. And then this week, we kind of, I don't know, dip our toes into a little bit of a true crimey side. It involves a murder. So now it's kind of like Chelsea doing a little bit of a crossover here. I know last week you guys were all loving Lydia Dietz featured in the video, so I'm not feeling too nervous about the fact that we're going to be in the same outfits. Without further ado, here we are, again, in the same outfits.
So let me tell you about Lisa Mia, because this was something, and let me just give a disclaimer first. This is unhinged. This is spooky, creepy. It's funny because like this is kind of true crime related, and what yours was like scam related. So it's like a little switcheroo.
A little crossover switcheroo.
I fell down this rabbit hole about a year ago because I saw this Reddit post on I Am the Main Character, that subreddit, and the title of it said, "Guys, I think her husband was murdered."
My husband was murdered in one of the most gruesome homicides in Florida. My husband was brutally murdered in one of Florida's most gruesome homicides. Answering questions.
Actually like to pay for the person behind me. Today is National Day of Remembrance for homicide victims, and my husband was brutally killed. So,
This is Rob, my beautiful husband, who was brutally murdered, but I'm still here.
Hi, I also want to pay for the people behind me, and if you can give them a letter for me in honor of suicide prevention. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to pay for their order, and also if you can tell them too that today is the anniversary of when my husband was laid to rest after he was brutally killed. I'm going to pay for the person behind me, and I lost my husband to a homicide, and he used to think.
When the grief of losing my husband becomes too great, I talk to him. I say, we can't grow old together anymore. But we can grow timeless. And in our published poems, and in my completed book ready for print, our story and your love and how wonderfully and powerfully you did so can be memorialized forever.
Wait, did she say in honor of suicide prevention, but then she was saying murdered? No, I feel like I need to watch these.
Oh, you will. This is from someone on like that original post, and it says, after doing some digging, I was finally able to find the man that she's speaking about. His obituary photo was the same photo that she had once previously shared in her TikToks. Eager to find her name in the obituary, I began to read it until I noticed that she's not even mentioned in the obituary at all. In fact, this man, whose name was Robert Mason Brewer, did not have a wife. The obituary only states that he's remembered by his mother, siblings, and even cousins. If she was married to him, as so she states, wouldn't she be mentioned in the obituary in the first place? And then they said, thinking that this was a mistake, I also found a Facebook page dedicated to his memory, in loving memory of Robert Mason Brewer. All the photos she shared in her TikToks are public in that Facebook page. And again, no mention of her by name or that he was married. I found a few pictures of them, but they were all in group settings and they never sat together or looked like a couple. I got you now, don't I, bitch? Right, I got you. I got you too. I got you too. It's very sad. But hey, that's not what we're actually talking about, because yes, that's sad. It's so sad for the family. However, what we're focusing on is this insane woman exploiting someone's We're focusing on our girl, Lisa, who's not our girl. After all these findings, I decided to comment and share what I had found. I tried to be polite since I had no idea if I was just blowing things out of proportion. I simply asked, I'm curious, why would she not be mentioned in his obituary if that was his wife? Within less than 5 minutes, I was blocked by her. It turns out that she is the admin of the group. Thankfully, another user had seen my comment, remembered my username, and they directly DM'd me. They informed me that they had reached out to Robert Brewer's family members since they had the same concerns over the situation, and that she would get back to me if they responded to her. That night, she got back to me and let me know that a family member, a cousin, had answered her and told her that they had not spoken to this woman in years, and that the videos upset many of the family members, and that she was only doing this for attention. After blocking me, I went on a different account where I was not blocked and noticed that she was continuing to block every single person questioning her relationship with what is available online. So I kept digging, and with help of other people that I had reached out to, looking into the situation, other people who had been blocked by her, we stumbled across a video where she's talking about the legality of being married and how she and Robert had secretly exchanged wedding vows.
Where? At the park? At recess?
Exactly. It's giving...
I used to force people to marry me at the park.
Child marriages. What have I done? What have I gotten into with this podcast?
To be fair, when I was like in grade 1, I married Ben. And Ben, sorry if you don't want your full name out here. And we stayed married till like grade 6. He would go on trips, like his family was like well off. They would go on trips all the time, and he was always bringing me back jewelry, like grade 1, getting jewelry. Like, yeah, he was great. So it worked out for me. Okay, anyways, so just a verbal marriage.
So she claims that they secretly exchanged vows the month that he was murdered, which she also claims is the month that they were supposed to marry. If this is true, why would his family still not acknowledge her as his wife, especially in the obituary or in general? Let's say, theoretically speaking, that they were engaged. With 0 engagement announcements, 0 photos of them actually together on social media. 0 mentions of an engagement or even a fiance in the obituary. She also never posted photos of the both of them before, and she posts content about his murder almost every day, which I just said murder because it's in quotations, but yes, he was murdered brutally almost every day. Then why would she not? Again, yes, she's reusing the same pictures, and him and her are in like one picture alone together, but they don't look like a couple, you know? It's weird. So she's so comfortable speaking about his death and murder as one of the most brutal murders in Florida, but will not post or share any pictures or good memories of them both. Additionally, I have to mention the fact that she spreads copious amounts of misinformation on the platform. She will embellish details of the night of his murder, even going as far as to say that he was kidnapped and targeted out of nowhere when he was just out one night, which that's not true. I have read the police report, so like that's quite literally not true.
Do we have a synopsis like of what happened to Robert? What happened?
Trigger warning, it is quite vicious. He was at an apartment, his apartment, maybe someone else's apartment, and he was with these 3 other guys, and then this lady who was there, and she's like 20 years older than all of them, which was so weird. And she was dating one of the guys. So apparently he was like flirting with the female that was there, and one of the guys like got mad about it. So after he had like smoked and taken Xanax or whatever, or they like, some accounts say that like they drugged him. It kind of sounds like that. But anyway, so they were doing drugs or whatever, and he fell asleep. And then once he like passed out, one of the guys got a little Norman Batesy, minus the shower, minus the mom. Once that guy like realized that he was still breathing and not deceased, he did that more did some more Norman Bates. I'm trying to like censor myself so we don't get demonetized. Not that we make money from this anyway, so like really who cares? If you do not want to hear this part, go ahead and skip forward 10 seconds because it is absolutely very upsetting. So what they did was they stabbed him a bunch more times. He was actually still alive. He had just like passed out from the shock of it, apparently. And they stuffed his body in a duffel bag, zipped it up, threw it in a dumpster that was in like the parking lot of the complex, and then lit it on fire. And that's how he died.
Oh my gosh.
So she's right. It's
Robert.
brutal. It's very brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal. She's right. Okay, so, but are we thinking like an acquaintance or?
Okay, so she keeps saying that he was like kidnapped and he was like out minding his own business and like
Answering questions about my husband's brutal homicide. What I've gleaned from detectives, the police department, and the prosecuting attorneys watching the interviews of the killers, and how disgusting and disturbing that was. This homicide has devastated me. My family, Rob's mom and I we're holding on. We're trying to hold on. He was targeted, my husband, by some of the killers that acted in direction with enthusiasm under the ringleader. This one who, according to the neighbors, he was trying to find someone to kill that day, and he was so excited to find someone to murder. And the neighbor didn't do anything. So he had some people go to the mall, find somebody, and he found my husband.
From her version of the story, she's like, oh, we were engaged and like about to be married. And it's like the nuptials are not in the room with us because they don't exist. She goes to a different school. They boop-a-doop, boop, boop, boop. And then it says, lastly, ever since she started gaining traction on TikTok, she has begun to advise, Jesus, I can't read it. She has begun to advertise a new book that she has written, and which claims that it's her husband's memoir and the book of poems that he wrote, as well as her own, which are a take on the tragedy of his murder. If she publishes a memoir about this guy and his story, it is without a doubt in my mind that she will go ahead and continue to spread the misinformation for her 5 minutes of fame and to sell her book. Also publishing something about someone else's son without asking them first for permission and sharing his story is incredibly wrong. She also keeps claiming that you need to read her first book that she's releasing, which is a collection of poems that she wrote as well. Allegedly, they were not engaged. They were not dating. Apparently they dated for like, not to sound like Clinton Kane, but apparently they dated for like 3 months. She's just continuously exploiting this poor man's, yes, brutal murder over 10 years later, and just posting like misinformation. And people are like, why didn't you talk about this before? And she's like, oh, well, it's, I'm talking now because like I was being silenced. You can play the clip about that.
This is the first time that I'm really coming forward because detectives and the prosecuting attorney urged me, his mom, and the rest of us that were privy to this information, that coming to the media with any of this could impact the trial, any one of the killers. So I had to stay silent for years and years. And now, I'm coming out. Now I'm here. My book is complete. You get to know who he was. You get to read an incredible piece. And I lived to do it. And I continue to keep living.
But it's like, girl, how were you being silenced when the last person like to be charged, like they were already convicted like a few years after? Like what are you talking about? Like there's so many red flags with it. Like she shares the last text that he ever sent her. It's a picture from like a flip phone. I guess it's like from one of her old phones. And it's like, girl, how is that the last text he sent you? When y'all were allegedly, engaged and gonna be married like right before his death. And if he passed away in 2013, like you wouldn't have had a flip phone. So what people are thinking, and what a lot of Reddit users have said, is that she was like his upstairs neighbor or something, and like they did hook up a few times, or like they did have like a casual relationship, and like they hung out in like a group setting a couple of times, and that's why she has like that like one picture with them together, or like group pictures from like group hangs. And it's girl, it is so troubling to like look at her stuff, and she's just constantly like trauma dumping.
Pay for the person behind me. A part of my soul that I'm gonna give to you. Actually like to pay for the person behind me. Today is National Day of Remembrance for homicide victims, and my husband was brutally killed. So I just wanted to give some love today, and I hope that, you know, if anybody that you lost, and I feel like there is somebody, and she's watching you all the time, and she loves you. So this is for the people behind me. I know. I actually record these things. Can you say hi to people? I'm gonna pay for them. And do you accept tip?
I'll make you ask. We kind of do tip.
Thank you. And this is for you, for being an amazing service worker. And I want you to not accept anybody telling you who you are. You're wonderfully you. I can tell. You have that vibe. And I feel so privileged to be able to connect with people. And I received a lot of hate this week, grieving for my husband. And it was National Remembrance Day for murdered victims. And a lot of people don't understand this kind of kindness.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I hope you have a wonderful day.
And so has his family ever publicly said anything about it, or only like to the Reddit investigators who are equally as good as detectives at this point?
She has like TikToks with his mom. I'm really wondering like why the mom is like giving into this. The mom also like lost her other son, so it seems like she really has no family left, and maybe this is the only person who she can get with who will still go visit the grave or like still talk about her son with her.
I think Chelsea absolutely nailed it with this comment. I was going through some of her old TikToks, and there is one that I'm going to show you here where his mother is speaking to her and just thanking her for everything that she's done in terms of communicating with her, being there for her, keeping Rob's memory alive. So there is an aspect to that where, as a grieving mother who has no more of her children left, appreciates that and probably can't see the other side of, if we're talking in terms of exploitation, which when you go through the TikTok and you see how often her book is pushed and advertised as these are poems written for her from him basically, and there's really absolutely no verification that that's true. It's her reciting a poem saying that he wrote it for her.
My husband was killed in one of Florida's most gruesome homicides. It was his dream to become a poet and a published writer. He was writing his memoir, his last poem, before they lit him alive in a dumpster fire. He wrote this poem to me. Eyes bright, lips electric, rays from within, sharp and eclectic, cutting the tension, magnetic poles, attraction, ascension, creating the holes. Flesh to flesh, tear to tear, a drop in the bottle, day of the year. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, innocence outward, inward the lust, exploding with flames. Now is our turn, and ever together, forever we.
I did want to share one TikTok that I did come across where you can see his writing in it. It does seem to be about her. Again, I mean, I can't cross-reference any of his previous writing because I don't have it, but I'm gonna believe it. And so she has shared that one.
Over the last week, I was bullied and harassed. People went as far as to say I was the most hated woman on TikTok. But I received strength and support from you guys, fighting for me, loving me, and I love you back with all my heart. This is a poem by love of my life, my husband Rob. It says, From top to bottom, head to toe, in and out, rip to sew, the Mending You awesome team, my very own Lisa Marie.
This is touchy because Chelsea and I will get into it a little bit, talking about grief and losing somebody that you cared about. That can mean anything. It can be just a casual passing. Maybe you met somebody one time, but they touched your life. But the way that this is being portrayed and presented and based off of people who knew him, this was not his wife, or she has corrected herself since there has been concern saying that they were going to get to that process and who's the government to step into this, but their souls were united.
Husband, wife, partner, spouse. These are not just legal titles with paperwork. It's so much more. When souls, usually two, love each other so much that before the government gets involved, their union is already signed, in commitment to each other, and sealed with a verbal promise of loyalty through ups and downs, successes, joys, challenges, and whatever life throws. Choosing each other in this life over and over, and in some cases, like mine, forever. Rob and I said our vows creatively to one another. No paperwork. He was killed before we could do that. Our families and friends look forward to celebrating our union like we should have the month he was killed, if I should choose. Rob is my partner and husband in all the ways that the spirit of marriage was sanctified and created for. And I, more than fiancé, his wife.
And again, I don't want to take anything from that experience from her, but there is another clip that I came across of her sharing one of her favorite memories of him. And it was a little bit concerning, and I don't know if she intended it to be as telling as I got it. You'll have to let me know your thoughts. But it's a situation where maybe they were casually seeing each other. They were at a Subway. He was speaking to the employee, and she yells, and she tells the story, you're going to hear it, yells at him to not speak to anybody but her. I think that kind of gives you an insight as to maybe what that relationship was like and how she felt that comfortable doing and saying that in public. Before we get to that, though, I do want to share one of the TikToks that she made with Rob's mom on speakerphone. It kind of implies how this relationship has formed because of his death. It doesn't sound like anything prior to. It sounds like she's been there for his mom since his passing, and so now she considers her like a daughter. Not that they were married. It's kind of how she's shown up for her since his passing.
I'm excited for you. All these years, you did so much to keep Rob's name, to keep Rob present, even after 13 years. I mean, one of the administrators on his In Loving Memory page. You've just done so much. I can't list all the things that you've done for me. My boys are gone, My legacy's over. You're my daughter-in-law.
I had a lot of trust issues, severely abused growing up for a long time, many, many years. Rob knew that, and he loved me fiercely, and he loved me anyway despite all that. He had incredible patience. We were in line, we got 2 subs, and I sat down, and he went to go collect our drinks. Cashier who reached over, and she reached over to give him our cups in front of everybody, and I said very loudly, I don't want you talking to anyone unless the person's me. I actually said that, and it got so quiet, you couldn't hear a pin drop. And Rob, he was this 6-foot-tall, beautiful man, just glowing. He didn't even frown when I said that to him. And he just said, well, I love it when people talk to you because they can see how beautiful you are. And that just shut me down. And even though I felt so embarrassed and I was so ashamed, as I should have been, right? That was just one of the innumerable ways that he loved me. That I could just say the most unbelievable things that any partner would go running away. I was a red flag. I was just like this red flag, and he loved me. He loved me to life, and all the red flag parts, he loved them out of me. I don't know.
I want to emphasize that everybody's experience is different. So who am I to say what my favorite memory would be in this situation? I was never obviously a fly on the wall during whatever relationship they had. I just thought that it was telling that this was her favorite memory. You know, if you're being asked by an audience that this is your whole feed, this is your whole identity, and they're wanting to get to know him and your relationship, and it's like, what is your favorite memory of him? And this is your favorite memory. It's a little bit concerning, and I felt like it was quite telling. Like, this is the situation that you're reflecting on, that you're going to share with your audience. And I understand you're also trying to touch on how you've grown as a person from this point. It's just something feels off.
It's just so scary. But then also maybe kind of the only person who will talk about her son like in such a positive way. He wasn't the saint that she has made him out to be. It can be true at once, whatever. People go through like ebbs and flows in life. I get it.
But it's just about being honest about it. Like being like, we briefly dated, like this really affected me, you know? Like I have somebody in my life, like my ex was murdered. We were closer when we weren't together, so he was a friend at that point, but there's no denial that like just having that closeness at one point in our life and then him being murdered, like of course that fucking sucks, but I wouldn't be like, he was my fiance.
I didn't realize that. We have very similar trauma. The only other person that I was like in a long-term like serious relationship with, my high school boyfriend, basically, like he right after he graduated, he passed of a drug overdose. And so like that was quite traumatic, but I ain't making up details.
We don't need to do that. And I think like, yeah, it's such a slippery slope, because and then it's like frustrating because you still feel for, obviously she's not doing well, probably with the news, probably was holding on to him, and then felt like she had to fabricate this story almost to give herself more legitimacy. And it's like, you don't need any reason to mourn or feel something about somebody. I mean, look, there's fucking people who like cry when celebrities die, and that's okay. Like you know, like obviously somebody like touched you at one point that you're like bummed out and sad for them and sad for their family. So if you had direct contact with somebody, it's like, just don't lie. Like the flightless bird gal. Man alive, I am just all over the place with the updates. Hey guys. I came across a TikTok of somebody just giving a brief synopsis of the flightless bird, because once I'm watching this back, I'm like, oh, for anybody who doesn't know, that doesn't make sense. So here's a little bit of context from this TikToker that I found that just kind of quickly gives a synopsis of that situation and kind of how we were referring to it, tying in and just being like, your experience is okay to be your experience. Let's not lie though, okay? Let's not lie.
This TikToker known as Flightless Bird just admitted that she has been lying to the internet for the last week by pretending her husband was suffering from some sort of mental break that she described as a possible manic episode. She acted as though she believed her and her children's lives were in jeopardy and begged the millions of people watching her 12 videos for help. She described her husband losing touch with reality as though it was happening to her in real time. She would film herself looking disheveled and crying, playing the part of a desperate mother in dire need of resources. And undoubtedly, many people reached out to her, wasting their time to offer her assistance, because she has now admitted that the situation is not happening in real time, but instead took place 7 months ago in January. Her excuse for lying to millions of people is that she wanted to give her audience an immersive experience. As if people actually wanted or needed a Shanann Watts immersive experience.
That's where the idea for this page began. I wanted to use my passion for this to create an immersive experience.
She then went on to apologize to those who were affected by her dishonest content.
I hope you can forgive me for any emotional distress that you may have experienced while witnessing the retelling of our story.
Talking about a traumatic experience that could help people, there was no need to say that this was happening in real time. You know, like you could have just been like, this happened 8 months ago and I want to go through the whole timeline, almost like it's in real time so you can experience what I was going through with me. There you go. Fucking there you go.
But listen, if you were going to do that, then you'd be a Clout Queen and not a Clout Goblin. Did you know that we have a submission form that is in the link in our bio of all of our social medias and down below that you can actually submit your suggestions for topics for us? That would be super cool if you want to do that. What do we say? We say stay feral and destroy the patriarchy?
Damn the man, save the empire.
Totally, what that bitch said.
Damn the man, save the empire.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.